recent in a string of lone wolf attacks that were stopped by local police. Is there an unexpected new role for local law enforcement in America? With me now, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke. Good evening, Sheriff.
Good evening, Judge. Home run on your opening as usual. Make sure you touch all the bases. Look, first of all, I want to salute those 5 Marines who gave their lives in service to this country. And I want to salute all of our armed service personnel. That they would take casualties on the homeland, I find unfathomable. But in part, it's because the commander-in-chief is either unwilling or unable to protect the homeland. And as a sheriff of Milwaukee County, and I'm going to include all of local law enforcement, we know we're on the front lines in this these attacks on the homeland. We have been ever since 9/11. But we're facing some difficulties. First of all, the intelligence that we get is not very actionable. It's not very good. We need to come to grips with the fact that I think we need a domestic intelligence agency in the United States similar to MI5 in the UK. The FBI is doing what they can, but they're a downstream organization, and what that means is they end up coming in after the fact and then developing information,
reactive,
and that's about
instead of
all that they're going to get.
But Sheriff, let me ask you this. You know, you say actionable intelligence. You know, I don't know if we would ever have found out about this guy, you know, that he was basically under the radar. I mean, this just happened recently, and this Hadith text and all this other stuff, I mean, is just within the last few days before the killing.
Sure, but the thing is that we don't have a strategy, and that needs to come from Washington. Because, and I say from Washington because we need a national strategy. We can't have, you know, 10,000 disparate strategies within the United States to deal with the homegrown terrorist threat. One of the things that would help us, and that the Commander-in-Chief President Obama did not do, or what he did do, is he gutted the Department of Defense 1033 program. That was a program that allowed law enforcement, local law enforcement, to use military surplus or to acquire military surplus to respond to counter-terrorism situations like we saw in Chattanooga. He gutted that. Everything that he does, it just comes up wrong. I've never seen a president like this, that everything he touched tends to turn to crap. So there are some things that we can do. I'm not going to sit on my hands and watch my community take on casualties from these homegrown terrorists, but we need a national strategy, and I think it starts there.
We're not going to get it from this president, Sheriff. You know it, and you know that you were the first line of defense, whether it was 9/11, the World Trade Center, where the cops and the firemen ran toward it. In Chattanooga, we hear the local cops are running toward the shooter. You know, you guys are on the front line, and at the end of the day, the president talks about taking away some of your weapons.
You know, in addition to that, he spent the last 6 months just berating and beating on the American law enforcement officer, weakening their morale instead of building them up. I find it ironic that on the day of this attack in Chattanooga, Tennessee, he was visiting a federal prison, lifting the spirits of federal prisoners. And that's kind of the state that we're at. But we can still get this done in our hometown. I'm going to enlist in my community. I'm going to enlist the assistance of the law-abiding armed American citizen because, as you know, Judge, we're a target-rich environment. And like you said, this guy was not on the radar screen. We can't predict everyone in every place, but I'm going to need help in this fight, and that's why I'm going to be calling on the armed American citizen in the United States in this attack on the homeland.
And, you know, people in law enforcement are now, as we've been talking about, the front line of defense. You know, I understand you're going to ask people, you know, Americans, other armed Americans, but if you had a wish list, what would you get to either educate the local law enforcement? I mean, the FBI may know what they're doing in terms of, you know, this terrorism, but does local law enforcement need an education in addition to more firepower or whatever you might need in these situations?
Sure, because it's not just equipment and whatnot. It's also understanding this homegrown terrorist threat. It's multifaceted. You know, most of the time what we see after these incidents is people say we never saw any signs, we didn't know what was going to happen. Well, there are some good plans out there. There have been studies on the profile. Yes, I said the profile of the homegrown terrorist, but of course, you know, that's not in vogue right now to profile individuals and use those sorts of terms.
Because I'm running out of time, I want to ask you this. Profiling. Muslim profiling in New York City. They pulled back that counter-terrorism unit that they had. What do you think about kind of monitoring mosques and where some of this might be happening? They say that kind of surveillance is racist or is not appropriate.
Well, I don't care about offending people. I care about protecting the American citizen and protecting the homeland. It's a discussion we are going to have in the intelligence community. And regardless of what people out of the White House might be saying, job one is protect the homeland. So if it causes people to get their feeling hurts or whatever, we still have a Constitution in this country, and we can still do it within the Constitution. But we have to have a serious discussion in the intelligence community about using every aspect that we can and looking under, every rock, if you will, to find out what the next attack is and what it's going to look like.
All right. Sheriff David Clarke, always good to talk with you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And Marines across the country